heat. You take so much abuse from people that don't know what they're talking about. I want to just say that you have a friend with this administration, and you have a friend with me. Yes. Nobody does a better job. Nobody does a better job. And I have to add that you have no idea how much you're loved by the public. Maybe not by the fake news, but you're loved by the public. Beyond belief. And that includes my friend Brandon. And Brandon, thank you very much for being so great. You've been getting the word out how important it is. Border security, the wall or the steel barrier. They can have any name they want, but we have to have it. And it's going to happen. But law enforcement and ICE and Border Patrol, incredible job you do. And the public loves you. The public, not like, they love you. And I just hope that none of you run for president, because you may be the one person that we have a problem with, because you are highly respected in our country and beyond our country. We know what you do with MS-13. We know what you do with the gangs. We know what you do with crime. And we also see what you do on the border. Boy, I'll tell you what, it's tough stuff. But it could be a lot easier for you, and you could be spread a lot differently if we had the walls, and we'll get it. We'll get it. I think we're winning the battle in a very big way. So I just want to thank you all in particular for being with us. Thank you very much, fellas. Thank you very much. Really incredible. I want to thank also Secretary Nielsen and Commissioner McAllen for being with us. We made the trip down from Washington. And again, Senator John Cornyn has been an incredible champion of what we're doing, and a very popular man in Texas. And I think we're running in 2 years together, and that's very good for both of us, I hope. I think it is. I think it's my honor, John. I want to tell you, the people in Texas love you. And we have another great friend of mine, Ted Cruz, and he is a friend of mine, except for about 4 or 5 months in between. I was telling John that Ted and I were on the campaign, we liked each other so much, and I said, look, at some time that'll end. Right, Ted? But we actually would do joint appearances together, and the press would say, when's it going to end? I said, it'll happen. Ted would say, too, it'll happen. We didn't know it would be quite that violent. But then the friendship is at least equal to what it was. And I just want to congratulate you, because I was here. We had that arena with about 22,000. That was the Houston Arena. That was an incredible night, right? And we had, I think, 109,000 or 106,000 people wanting to come. They had thousands outside. And that was a few weeks before the election. I said, I think he's going to win. I think he's going to win nicely. And I want to just congratulate you. That was not easy. Thank you. And now he lost and he wants to run for president. And I said, I thought you had a win to run for president, right? But you did a great job, Ted. We appreciate it. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who's led some incredible cases. Ken, thank you very much. And Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who's been, again, a friend of mine for a long time. I also want to thank the governor. He's going on Fox tonight. And he sends his regards. And we're going to either see him later. He's coming into Washington. But the governor, who just had a great campaign also, he's been fantastic and a big believer in what we're doing. So say hello to him, and I'll speak to him later. Thanks also to Brandon Judd and the National Border Patrol Council. So Brandon, I've known him from the beginning. And almost before I announced, he was for my ideas and he was for us. He was for me. And I appreciated it. And I appreciated all you guys coming up last week. They had a big impact. We said to them, what do you want? Who knows better than them? He knows better than all of us put together. And that group was fantastic that we had in Washington just a few days ago. And they went on television, and anybody that listened wouldn't even have a doubt about it. So, Brandon, thank you, everybody. We appreciate it very much. Done a fantastic job. The Border Patrol's Rio Grande Valley sector. Who is from the sector? Do you have any specific guys here from, and ladies? Quite a few. Now, are you tougher than the rest? Are you just tougher than the rest? I don't know. Maybe. But I heard special. I heard special. Chief, oh, there they are. How are you? Come on over here. Come here, man. Come here. That's fantastic, and I've heard so much about all of you, and we're going to spend a little time in a little while together. I don't know if we're walking or flying, but either one is okay with me. We're going to see a lot. But thank you for being here. In a few moments, the American people will hear directly from our frontline border agents about the tremendous flood of illegal immigration, drug trafficking, human trafficking, a phenomena that has been going on for 1,000 years or more, and that you think was something that modern society wouldn't have. And hate to tell you that because of the internet, it's worse than ever before. Human trafficking, it's a horrible thing. And much of it it's a world problem, not a U.S. problem only. And they come across the border, and it's a bad thing. And they drive. They just go where there's no security, where you don't even know the difference between Mexico and the United States. There's no line of demarcation. They just go out, and where there's no fencing or walls of any kind, they just make a left into the United States, and they come in, and they have women tied up. They have tape over their mouths, electrical tape, usually blue tape, as they call it. It's powerful stuff, not good. And they have 3, 4, 5 of them in vans, or 3 of them in back seats of cars, and they just drive right in. They don't go through your points of entry. They go right through. And if we had a barrier of any kind, a powerful barrier, whether it's steel or concrete, if we had a barrier, they wouldn't be able to make that turn. And they wouldn't even bother trying, because they can't go through the points with people. So we would stop that cold. We would stop it cold. And they can't fly in, obviously, for obvious reasons. So we'd stop human trafficking in this section of the world. I think would stop it 90, 95%, a tremendous percentage would stop. And you also have the criminal gangs coming in. They don't walk through the points of entry. They come where nobody's around. And you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of miles, 2,000 miles, but we need 500 miles of border. One of the things that has happened is, and I was explaining to the 2 senators and to Dan in the car, that one of the things that really is happening is, without saying it too loudly, and I told him, and Dan said, could you repeat that story? When I say Mexico's going to pay for the wall, that's what I said. Mexico's going to pay. I didn't say they're going to write me a check for $20 billion or $10 billion. Nobody's going to write a check. I said they're going to pay for the wall. And if Congress approves this incredible trade bill that we made with Mexico, and Canada, by the way, but with Mexico in this case, they're paying for the wall many, many times over. And Dan said, would you do me a favor, say that? And I do say it, but the press sort of refuses to acknowledge it. When I say Mexico is going to pay for the wall, that's what I mean. Mexico's paying for the wall. And I didn't mean, please write me a check. I mean, very simply, they're paying for it in the trade deal. And sometimes I'd say that. So hopefully people will start to understand. Now, if the deal doesn't get approved by Congress, which would be hard because it's so much better than NAFTA. NAFTA was a horrible trade deal, one of the worst ever made. It really hurt our country. But now we have the USMCA, and it's a great deal. And I think that you're going to see some tremendous improvement for the farmers and for the people of Texas. So law enforcement professionals at DHS, the men and women in this room, have told us what they need to secure our border. These are the people we went to. It's not only the wall or the barrier, it's the equipment for seizing the drugs. We have tremendous equipment today. It's expensive, but tremendous equipment that when you do drive through one of the ports of entry, we have equipment that will be able to detect the drugs. And it's the finest in the world, and we're getting it ready. It's part of what we're asking for. It's not only the wall. And we've taken their recommendation straight to Congress. But Congress, as you know, the Democrats are holding us up because they don't want it. They think it's good politically. I think it's a disaster for them politically. But I'm not doing it for politics. I'm doing it because it's right. I'm doing it because it's right. And before, when I left Washington, I said they can't have a problem with crime because the people that are coming in, the criminals, the gangs, the traffickers, the drugs, it's all crime. And the only way you're going to stop it is the way these people are strongly recommending that it be stopped, Brandon. So hopefully, I hear we're making a lot of progress. I even hear certain members of Congress, the Democrats, are saying we better get this thing going. This isn't working out too well for us, because nobody's going to win the battle of strong borders and no crime as opposed to open borders and crime doesn't matter, because that's what they're saying. Crime doesn't matter. We have people that have been so horribly hurt, families that have been so horribly hurt by people that just come in like it's like just come into the United States, do whatever they want. In many cases, they leave and then they'll come back. Or in many cases, they stay. And we've done a very good job at the border, considering we're not given the right laws. We have laws that are so bad. They're archaic and they're horrible. And we don't have the barrier. So our plan includes drug detection technology at our ports, more officers and agents, far more beds to house the influx of unlawful migrants, medical support, closing the disastrous loopholes that incentivize child smuggling, the single biggest victims of what is happening at our border, our children. They're being used by the coyotes. They're being sold left and right. People are grabbing them to get in because our laws are really lousy. And if you have a child with you, it's easier to get in. These people know it better than anybody, far better than the people in Washington. And I think the biggest victims are children and women. Women would be right there with the children. These are the victims. And it's women mostly in terms of the smuggling and what's going on with that. So we're going to take care of this problem. And to think anybody can even think about fighting it is ridiculous. So we're going to build a powerful steel barrier. They didn't want to use concrete. I said, OK, I'll use steel. It's stronger. It's also more expensive, by the way. But it's stronger. I'll use steel. So we'll call it a steel barrier. Now people should be happy. They said concrete. We don't want a concrete wall. I said, that's OK. We'll build a steel wall. I like it better, if you want to know the truth, Ted. And we'll call it a barrier instead of a wall. And I'm OK with that, too. I don't care what you call it, but it's got to be there. Democrats have refused to listen to the border agents, and they say this is a manufactured crisis. That's their new soundbite. All over, I turn the television. You know, I call it the opposition party. It's called the fake news media. And what happens is every network has a manufactured crisis. This is every one of them. It's like they, send out to everybody, let's use this soundbite today. So it's a but it's not. What is manufactured is the use of the word manufactured. It's manufactured by them. Every single of the negatives. But they're not winning because it's common sense. It's common sense. They say a wall is medieval. Well, so is a wheel. A wheel is older than a wall. And I looked, and every single car out there, even the really expensive ones that the Secret Service uses, and believe me, they are expensive. I said, do they all have wheels? Yes. Oh, I thought it was medieval. The wheel is older than the wall. You know that? And there are some things that work. You know what? A wheel works and a wall works. Nothing like a wall. The government shut down because Democrats will not fund border security, plain and simple. And again, more than just the walls. Their open borders agenda threatened all American families, including millions of legal immigrants throughout our nation. In the last 2 years alone, our courageous ICE officers, many of whom are with us, arrested criminal aliens charged with or convicted of 100,000 assaults. This is in the last year. 30,000 sex crimes, and 4,000 violent killings. We're deeply moved to have with us Reggie Singh, whose brother, Ronald Singh, an incredible guy. I mean, I watched, and I rarely felt worse in watching news of our nation than watching your family and the love that you have for your brother. I could see that, Reggie, the way it came through. It came through loud and clear. And there are so many other people who have the same. Nobody covers them. You know, when they talk about how unfair, how this, how that, nobody talks about how unfair it is to the victims of these brutal killings. And by the way, over the years, there's thousands of them. I don't mean hundreds. I don't mean in the teens. I mean thousands of them. And these officers can all tell you about them. And I'd like to, if I could, because I watched a family right around Christmas time, and I watched them suffer, and I'd like to ask if Reggie, maybe you could say a few words about your incredible brother, the job he was doing. He was so beloved by the people in the department and beyond the department, and maybe you could say a few words about your brother, please.
So Ronil Singh, we originally from Fiji Islands. He always wanted to be in law enforcement. So legally, we migrated to America to fulfill his dream, to join the law enforcement. After English is our second language, he worked on that, got his education, applied for law enforcement agency, and he was asked to get his citizenship. He worked towards that, and he became a cop, K9, Corporal K9. And the way he was killed, what my family is going through right now, I do not want any other family, law enforcement person to go through that. Whatever it takes to minimize, put a stop to it, my family fully supports it. At 33 years old, Ronil Singh was cremated, and I had to pick up his remains. It breaks my heart. And no one should ever, ever go through that. Looking at that 5-month-old baby, looking for his dad, no one should ever go through that on Christmas Day. That's all. That's it.
Thank you. So we're with you. You know that, right? That was a tough one, too. That was a tough one for a lot of people. Not only the family, for a lot of people in this country. That was a tough thing to watch. Also with us, Marie Vega, whose son, Border Patrol agent Javier Vega Jr., who is another person who was loved by so many in the department, on the Border Patrol. We had so many people talking. They're still talking so much about him. It happened in 2014. He was out fishing with his wife, his parents, and his kids. And Marie, I'd like to maybe say a little bit about your son, because he is so loved and respected still in this room. Please. Thank you. Thank you.
My name's Marie Vega. We have 2 sons, my husband Javier and I. Very proud of both of them Marines. Harvey, at a very young age, expressed a love for law enforcement. And like, you know, the parent that wants the child to grow up and be something and be a productive human, we supported him. And he showed interest in the police force. Numerous times he rode with the police officers around our town, surrounding towns. When he was in high school, he told us that he wanted to be a Marine. And of course, it's like, okay, you want to be a Marine, you're going to start this, you're going to follow through, and you're going to finish it. And that's what he did. He became a Marine. Upon leaving the United States Marine Corps, he went to college, became a biomed engineer, and almost immediately after graduating, he was offered a job at Christus Pond in Kingsville. While working at Christus Pond, because he was surrounded by agents and saw how they worked, and still with that, you know, love for law enforcement in his heart, he came to me, came to my husband and said, Mom, Dad, I want to be a Border Patrol agent. And of course, again, you know, okay, you want to be a Border Patrol agent, then you're going to be a Border Patrol agent. And he became an agent. I always worried about him, like I worry about our family now. I want them to go to work, be safe, come home to their family safely. And I always, every day, I was, scared that I would lose my son. Never in my wildest dream did I ever imagine my son dying at a family outing. It was supposed to be a peaceful, fun, fishing afternoon, and it didn't happen that way. It didn't happen that way because we had a criminal, illegal alien that killed him. He came thinking that he was entitled to one of the 2 vehicles that we had there. There's no family, like Mr. Singh says, should go through this. No one. No family should suffer the loss of a child. A parent should not have to bury their child. We need the wall, and when I say we need the wall, I don't mean just build a wall. There's other things that we need to do also. We need to enforce immigration laws.
Right.
We need tougher judges. We need the wall itself. Our Border Patrol agents need to have what they should have, the equipment, the materials they need to do their job.
Thank you very much. You're 100% right. Thank you very much. He's very proud of you right now. Thank you very much, Marie. What Marie said is right. More than just the wall. We have to give these incredible people the tools to work with. We're not doing that. Politicians in Washington are saying, oh, they don't know the first thing about, they've never been here. They don't know the first thing about what we're talking about. So we're going to hear from a couple of our landowners, a couple of the folks that live in the area and areas that we're discussing. I think I'd like to start off with our Texas leaders, and they are indeed leaders, and say a few words about what we're here for and what we support and what's going to happen, and we have no choice. And maybe we'll start with John Cornyn, Senator Cornyn. Say a few words, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for being here.
Thank you.
And for hearing firsthand from not only the people who suffered at the hands of the crime that occurs as a result of people who don't come here to achieve their American dream, but people who come here to cause death and destruction and human misery. Before you, you see, maybe we'll have somebody go through some of the things that are in front of us, but I see here, for example, heroin and methamphetamine that's been seized. You see bulk cash, $362,000. When the drugs are sold in the United States, they have to get the cash back across the border to the cartels. And you see the sorts of weapons that are used by the drug cartels and others, and you can imagine the violence that goes along with that. And so when people like Ted and I hear our colleagues in Washington say that this is a manufactured crisis, we kind of wonder what planet they've been living on, because this is not just about economic migrants. This is about people who exploit the vulnerabilities in our border. This is about the 70,000 people who died of drug overdoses in America just last year. A substantial portion of it is from the heroin that comes from Mexico. 90% of the heroin that is used in the United States comes from Mexico. And as you point out, the human tragedy associated with human trafficking, sex slavery, modern-day slavery, all of that's associated with our inability to control the way we need to control our southern border. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your concern. And I want to particularly thank Mr. Singh and Ms. Vega for their willingness to come and tell their story and their courage.
Thank you, John, very much. Senator Cruz.
Well, Mr. President, welcome back to Texas.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're glad to welcome you to the Valley. One of the things you said a minute ago about the men and women here at Border Patrol and ICE is you referred to them as heroes, and that is exactly right. These are brave, courageous leaders. I've been out on midnight patrol with the agents here in the RGV sector, and they have a difficult job that they do each and every day. They risk their lives. All of us, Mr. Singh, our prayers are with your family, the tragedy you endured. Nobody should have to endure. Ms. Vega, we love you, and Mr. Vega is sitting back here as well. And this whole community loves the Vega family and has mourned their son's loss alongside them. Illegal immigration produces tragedies every day. Human smuggling, drug smuggling, children being abused, women being sexually abused, opioids that are destroying. Last year, 72,000 people lost their lives to drug overdoses, more than car accidents in this country. And much of those drugs are flooding across this southern border. And so I just want to commend you for standing up and fighting this fight. One thing there's not a lot of in Washington is backbone. And I want to commend you for helping infuse some more backbone in Washington. This is a fight the people of Texas and the American people want the borders secured. They want the federal government to have the backs of the men and women in this room that are risking their lives to keep us safe. And so thank you for highlighting this crisis. When we see politicians go on TV and say the border's secure and there is no crisis, they are ignoring reality. They're ignoring the lives that are jeopardized each and every day. So thank you for leading this fight.
Thank
Mr.
you very
President.
much, Ted. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Dan, if you could say a few words also, I'd like to have somebody get up and give us, just for the media, a little definition of exactly what's in front of us, because it looks pretty brutal. This is not a manufactured deal, as you say. This is the real stuff. And this is nothing compared to what they have. This is actually nothing compared to what they have. So is somebody going to be able to explain this to us quickly?
Yes.
Good.
Carlos.
Good. Carlos, please, go ahead. Please. Thank you.
President, welcome
Thank
to
you.
South Texas.
Thank you, Carlos.
I am the port director for Hidalgo on San Luis Port of Entry.
Good.
Before here, you see some narcotics that have been seized by the men and women of CBP. As you can see right here in the two tables to my far right and left here, these are 117 kilograms of methamphetamine and 12 kilograms of heroin that were seized in a commercial conveyance that was making entry at the port of entry. Officers noticed some discrepancies. The conveyance was referred to X-ray technology, and it was during the exam they were able to identify anomalies within the conveyance. With the use of our canine detector dogs, we were able to seize this merchandise. Right here at this particular one, these are fire extinguishers. These fire extinguishers were intercepted at the port of Progreso, Texas. It was a male that was driving into the United States, and the two fire extinguishers were used in the importation of methamphetamine and heroin, 100 grams of heroin and the 8 keys of methamphetamine as well. Also, we have some weapons that were seized at our ports of entry. Also with the assistance of our federal partners and state partners as well. So we have 3 Colt handguns. They're gold-plated, encrusted with diamonds. Those were seized at the Laredo port of entry. You have an AR-15 that was seized with the assistance of our state and local partners with the task force officers. You have an AK-47 that was seized by the officers at the Hidalgo port of entry going southbound. During a southbound inspection, there was nervous behavior that was displayed by the driver. Subsequently, the officers were able to find the AK-47 hidden in the back seat. You also have a 50 caliber rifle. During the inspection at the port of entry, officers with the use of NII equipment or X-rays were able to detect a compartment. That compartment was found in the back seat of a vehicle. Subsequently, with the assistance of our Homeland Security investigative partners and Air Marine, there was a surveillance that was conducted on the vehicle, went to a undisclosed location. From that location, a traffic stop was conducted, and the 50 caliber rifle was found, sir. Now, these 3 guns that you see, they're gold-plated handguns. and with diamonds incrusted.
Okay, that says it all. And this is just all recent. This is all very recent. They didn't have to go. They didn't have to go very far. This is all very recent. Okay.
Good morning, Mr. President, and welcome to the McAllen Station.
Thank
I
you.
am the patrol agent in charge here at the McAllen Station, so we're very pleased to have you here. $362,000. This is a multi-agency seizure. It actually was detected by a Weslaco Border Patrol Station K-9 handler. What ended up happening, there was a suspected currency smuggler who, due to a traffic stop, resulted in further investigation. He gave us consent into his house. K-9 came in, searched, and this was caught. This suspect was suspected also of marriage fraud. He was an overstay. He also had multi-thousands of dollars of financial transactions, all illicit activity. 362,000 of many.
Wow. That's something. And the dogs are incredible, aren't they? In terms of finding the drugs, but also they find money and drugs. They find drugs
They also find people,
and they find people.
people that are hidden away.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
And when we get a chance, I have some other things I would like to call to
Sure,
your attention.
go ahead.
Yes,
Sure, sure.
absolutely. I'll start over here, sorry, sir, if you will. So, Falfurrias checkpoint, which is north of here, two suspects that were being smuggled in the trunk of a car. It just so happens after records checks were run, one of the subjects actually had an Interpol hit. He was actually wanted out of Spain for murder. Here, we've got pictures depicting some seizures of marijuana and firearms. It just so happens when this multi-agency task force, Border Patrol included, went to go execute a warrant, the suspects inside the house actually started trying to burn the marijuana and actually try to throw it throughout the yard. But we were able to successfully get in, seize the marijuana, and make the arrest as well as other seizures. This here, very sad. Your words resonate with me. It's very dangerous. We've got a vehicle that failed to yield to Border Patrol agents. This vehicle, eventually the driver lost control, impelled the vehicle onto a pipe gate. A juvenile died in that vehicle. 15 to 16 other subjects seriously injured, all illegal in the United States. Here you're seeing the inside of a horse trailer where smugglers endangered these folks that they were smuggling, again, at the Falfurrias checkpoint. Here, this is just a couple of miles from here, from where we're standing. This is a tunnel. This is the second tunnel that we have located. This is an area that we actually have wall, and we actually have some technology and agents. That piece of area was really important to the criminal organization. We're doing such a great job utilizing the right resource in that particular area that they've become so frustrated they're using other tactics. They're actually digging tunnels. This is about 25 feet long, about 2 to 3 feet high. We were fortunate enough that when the station next to us, their boat patrol actually launched in our area, went down. They're very vigilant. They look for new landings. They look for anything that was different the day before, and they were actually able to see. This was very well hidden, but they were so vigilant, they found this. There is no telling what all else was going to come through this if they were successful. Here, this vehicle was actually floated across the Rio Grande River with narcotics. Floated on a trailer with barrels. Narcotics in the bed of the truck, narcotics in the cab of the truck. This is technology that we have here in the McAllen area making use of. That group is actually along the Rio Grande, but on the Mexican side, getting ready to cross the United States. That technology is so important, so our agents have time to go over there and deter that traffic. We've got large groups coming in. And sadly, this is a deceased subject, somebody who probably was trying to cross the Rio Grande, who didn't make it, and he died. He drowned. Thank you.
You want to go ahead?
Right here. 2 juveniles from Mexico trying to smuggle over 1,000 pounds here, again, in the McAllen area. They actually ran the vehicle. They ran into a Border Patrol agent. That's an assault. They were trying to get away. 2 juveniles, over 1,000 pounds of marijuana. This is a stash house, Mr. President. The smugglers, they don't care. They're treating human beings as commodities. They put them in deplorable situations. Sometimes they're in these houses up to 8 days, sometimes even more. This is terrible. This is just, the American people need to understand, like you stated just now, we know better. We know what the cost is to families, to our communities, to the country. We're here to serve, and we're here to protect not just ourselves and everybody in the country, but even the people who are being taken advantage of.
That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Very much.
Mr. President, I wanted to share with you that our state troopers seized 94.5 pounds of fentanyl last year, which on the street breaks down to 21 million lethal doses. 21 million lethal doses as we talk about our opioid crisis. To those of you who say this is a manufactured crisis, it's a manufactured cover-up by your opposition. We had 500,000 people apprehended crossing the border from San Diego to Brownsville last year, more than half in Texas, and most of those in this sector. Between Brownsville and Falcon Dam, we need the wall, we need the fencing. We have 54 miles. You're about to build 22 more miles, which leaves about 128 miles. On the other side of the border here, about 10 miles away, Mr. President, there's a city of 1 million people, Reynosa, without a police force. Every night, running gunfights in the streets between the Mexican Marines and the cartels, just 8 miles from here. And anyone who says we don't need a fence or a wall or a barrier or more law enforcement, they're deceiving the American people. Yeah. So you're right, Mr. President, and we're with you.
And they say it's immoral. What's immoral is all the killing that's taking place by people just walking across.
They're deceiving the American people. That's immoral.
They are. And they know better, and they all know. Yeah. It's an indefensible position. And even people that aren't into it like we are, where we're studying it and working and we want to end it and we can end it, everybody knows that what we're saying is right.
And the economic impact to the country. In Texas, we have 1 million students who aren't proficient or don't speak English, and these are good people that want to come here, but there's a tremendous cost to the taxpayer. That's about 1 out of every 5 students. The health care cost and the humanitarian cost. No one should have to die trying to come to America. And the Democrat opposition is creating that situation.
Yeah. Okay, well, I want to thank you, and I think a lot of people are getting it now because it's very simple. It's not complex. If we don't have a barrier, a very substantial barrier of some kind, you're never going to be able to solve this problem. And everybody gets it, whether you're educated in this world or not educated in this world. You don't have to be at all. They all get it. And that's why you see Congress now. Democrats in Congress are coming out and say, hey, we don't like this subject. There was just a big article. I won't give your competition the publicity, but there was a big article in a very important media outlet that just came out where a lot of the young Democrats just elected to office are breaking up and they're saying, hey, wait a minute, our position, meaning the Democrats' position of no barrier, no wall, is indefensible. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen more and more because it's common sense. Mark, would you say something, please? You've done a great job.
Well, Mr. President, I'd like to say that, as you well know, the Department of Defense is fully supporting the Department of Homeland Security and Customs and Border Patrol with thousands of service members from multiple components, and we continue to lean forward and willing to support in the mission as we look ahead.
And I called on you and I called on the Department of Defense to come down and help because we had caravans forming. We have another one forming, believe it or not, in Honduras, and we pay them tens of millions of dollars. They do nothing for us. They do nothing. And if you think that country is trying to stop, don't believe it, okay? And that goes for Guatemala, that goes for El Salvador. If they want to stop it, they can stop it. But they form, and then they come in through Mexico. They break in, and you saw what happened. They broke in because they didn't have the wall. And I think they're thinking about building a wall on their southern border now. But I want to thank the military. They've been incredible. They came up, and from day one they worked. Nobody's seen anybody work like that. And they put the essentially barbed wire, but it's called barbed wire times 10. And it was very effective, to put it mildly, very effective. Without that, we would have been,
President Trump there attending a roundtable on border security in McAllen, Texas. We've got a lot more news ahead, including our Nancy Cortez, who's on Capitol Hill. Vice President Pence also on Capitol Hill. Just gave a briefing to reporters. We're going to have the latest on the government shutdown and how the Republicans are trying to open up the government as well with Democrats. Let's see if there's any progress. You're streaming CBSN.
There were so many people in Washington talk about